in arms. Under the leadership of General Franco, General Delano, and others, Spain of tradition is rising to repel the Red Invader.
A point of Tolkien's life that interests many was that in 1944 he supported the Spanish dictator Francisco Franco. Tolkien was a reactionary Catholic and an admirer of the poet Roy Campbell. Like Tolkien, Campbell was a Briton born in South Africa and also a Catholic. He had met with Campbell in a pub and was enthralled by his personality and stories. On the topic of Campbell and the Spanish Civil War, Tolkien had this to say. As you know, he then fought through the war on Franco's side, and among other things was in the van of the company that chased the Reds out of Malaga in such haste that their general, Villalba, I believe, could not carry off his loot, and left on his table St. Teresa's hand with all of its jewels. The battle Tolkien refers to was fought in 1937. José Villalba Lacorte, who Tolkien refers to as a general, was actually a colonel. Also note that St. Teresa's hand is a 16th century bejeweled religious artifact. According to Wikipedia, the participation of Moroccan regulars and Italian tanks from the recently arrived Corpo Truppe Volontari resulted in a complete rout of the Spanish Republican Army and the capitulation of Malaga in less than a week. Tolkien continues describing Campbell, but I wish I could remember half his picturesque stories about poets and musicians, etc., from Peter Warlock to Aldous Huxley. The one I most enjoyed was the tale of Greasy Epstein the sculptor, and how he fought him and put him in hospital for a week. Peter Warlock refers to Philip Arnold Heseltine, a British composer. Aldous Huxley is, of course, the author of Brave New World, and Greasy Epstein the sculptor refers to Jacob Epstein, a famed sculptor of the epoch who Tolkien apparently did not like. These stories of adventure would fascinate Tolkien, and he would compare Campbell to the character of Trotter, later renamed Strider, or Aragorn. Some have argued that Aragorn was loosely inspired by Campbell, but I believe this interpretation stretches Tolkien's statement beyond the truth. I will admit, however, that Tolkien does view Campbell as fitting the archetype of an epic hero like Beowulf, who was a far more direct inspiration for Aragorn. Although I do not believe Aragorn was directly based on Roy Campbell, I do think that if Tolkien had written a novel set during the Spanish Civil War, he may have portrayed Campbell in an Aragorn-like role, perhaps with a pair of Carmelite monks as his Sam and Frodo. Tolkien continues on Campbell. However, it is not possible to convey an impression of such a rare character, both a soldier and a poet, and a Christian convert. How unlike the left, the corduroy panzers who fled to America, Auden among them, who with his friends got Roy Campbell's works banned by the Birmingham Town Council. This is an interesting quote as it reveals a lot about Tolkien's political views and his reasons for supporting Franco. He disparages contemporary left-wing artists and intellectuals, calling them corduroy panzers, in contrast to nationalists like Roy Campbell, whom Tolkien described in heroic terms. Auden refers to Wystan Hugh Auden, a British poet who, between 1935 and 1938, built his reputation as a left-wing political writer. A major element of Tolkien's support for Franco was not only Catholicism, but anti-communism, and a distrust of left-wing political figures. As Tolkien said in 1956, "I am not a socialist in any sense, being averse to planning." He then compares socialism and economic planning to Saruman. Tolkien was a philosophical anarchist and unconstitutional monarchist who distrusted the government. He equated socialism with planning, and equated planning with authoritarianism. Even earlier on the topic of socialism, Tolkien said, "I think there will be a millennium, the prophesied 1,000-year rule of the saints, id est, those who have for all their imperfections never finally bowed heart and will to the world or to the evil spirit. In modern but not universal terms, mechanism, scientific materialism, socialism in either of its factions now at war." This quote bridges together three elements of Tolkien's worldview. One is his religion, his moral foundation of Catholicism. Two is his Luddism, his hatred of mechanism and scientific materialism, a major theme of The Lord of the Rings. And finally is his opposition to socialism and contemporary left-wing politics. The Spanish Civil War represented to Tolkien a struggle between the ultimate good, Catholicism and God, and the ultimate evil, communism. Unlike Tolkien, his friend C.S. Lewis opposed Franco, and attempted to inform Tolkien to some of the atrocities carried out by the nationalist forces in the Spanish Civil War. Tolkien refused to believe him. Nothing is a greater tribute to red propaganda than the fact that he, who knows that they are in all other subjects liars and traducers, believes all that is said against Franco and nothing that is said for him. The Spanish Civil War would be a major wedge in the friendship between Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. Religion very much framed Tolkien's worldview. In the Silmarillion, evil began when Morgoth disobeyed Eru Ilúvatar and refused to sing along with the rest of the Ainur. Right and wrong are defined by God. Anything can be justified in his name. To quote Tolkien, in The Lord of the Rings, the conflict is not basically about freedom, although that is naturally involved. It is about God and his sole right to divine honor. The Eldar and the Númenóreans believed in the one, the true God, and held worship of any other person an abomination. Sauron desired to be a god king, and was held to this by his servants. If he had been victorious, he would have demanded divine honor from all rational creatures and absolute temporal power over the whole world. So even if in their desperation the West had bred or hired hordes of orcs and had them cruelly ravage the lands of other men as allies of Sauron, or merely prevented them from aiding him, their cause would have remained indefeasibly right. This system of divine morality would influence Tolkien's political views and his opposition to democracy. I am not a Democrat only because humility and equality are spiritual principles corrupted by the attempt to mechanize and formalize them. Lord of the Rings idealizes monarchy and the feudal system, which is representative of Tolkien's anti-democratic views. It is not terribly subtle when Aragorn, the rightful king of Gondor and Arnor by lineage, is coronated by Gandalf, a representative of the Ainur and of Eru Ilúvatar. The divine right of kings is absolute in Tolkien's worldview. The heroes fought to defend God's sole right to divine honor against the demonic usurper and restore the true, divinely appointed king. Tolkien elaborated on his feudal views in a BBC interview from the 1960s. He was asked, "You're wedded to the feudal system in a sense. I don't mean the medieval feudal system, but the idea of power descending through blood or through marriage." Tolkien's response, "Yes, I am wedded to those kind of loyalties, because I think, contrary to most people, I think that touching your cap to the squire may be damn bad for the squire, but it's damn good for you." A good example of a man who touches his cap to the squire would be Sam. He is the ideal common man who is eternally loyal in servitude to his aristocratic master. Sam is the only member of the Fellowship of the Ring who is not a member of aristocracy, and he knows his place, as he acts heroically out of loyalty to Frodo in an idealized feudal relationship. The most significant change the Jackson films make to The Lord of the Rings is his portrayal of Aragorn, who differs greatly from his book counterpart. In the film, he is depicted as a reluctant king and a passive hero, whereas in the books he is far more assertive, resolute, and eager to reclaim his throne. Whether this change was for better or worse is open to debate, but I believe Jackson made this choice to resonate with a modern audience that is less sympathetic to monarchy. To Tolkien, a man claiming his rightful throne is just as both his lineage and God support his claim, but to contemporary viewers, such a stance is tyrannical. The Shire itself operates on a socio-economic system most resembling medieval manorialism, with a few wealthy aristocrats like the Tooks and the Brandy Bucks owning most of the land. Old Farmer Maggot represents the middle class, a Yao-man who works his own land. There are landless laborers who live in dirt holes, and the Baggins are somewhere between the Yao-men and the aristocracy, idle wealthy, but not exceedingly so. Some have claimed that Tolkien, or even the author George Orwell, promote right-wing extremism, but I disagree. Tolkien was not an extremist, just very conservative, and strongly opposed to many of the changes of the 20th century. I wonder, if we survive this war, if there will be any niche, even of sufferance, left for a reactionary back number like me. Tolkien may have ideologically aligned, at least in some respects, with someone like Antonio Salazar, the former dictator of Portugal. Both were devout Catholics and university professors who supported Franco while opposing Hitler. Salazar even described Hitler as a pagan Caesarist, suggesting that he viewed the Nazi regime as both spiritually and politically illegitimate. I really have to wonder about the claim about Orwell leading to right-wing extremism. He was a socialist who fought on the opposing side of Roy Campbell in the Spanish Civil War, volunteering for the Workers' Party of Marxist Unification militia. Orwell did have some right-wing views, however, as he supported monarchy, and the book 1984 does show many of the evils of communism. In Orwell's own words, 1984 was based chiefly on communism, because that is the dominant form of totalitarianism. But I was trying chiefly to imagine what communism would be like if it was firmly rooted in the English-speaking countries, and was no longer a mere extension of the Russian Foreign Office. But to return to the main topic, Tolkien supported Franco because he was deeply conservative, religious, and anti-communist. And in Franco and Roy Campbell, he saw the salvation of Spain against communism and resistance against what he called the evil spirit. Thank you for watching.